This next clip is Tara talking about social media.
I just want to touch on social media a little bit, because I know the effect we have if one of our ex-contractors does a Google review and it's not positive. We take it quite personally, right? And it's almost, well, it does feel personal, I guess, because we know what we stand for as an organisation and who we are as people. And look, I've got no doubt, absolutely, without a doubt, we don't do everything right or as well as we should. But I can't help but think of the players, and they get so much external noise.
Yes.
And I'm thinking that perhaps you must play a fairly big part in trying to help them overcome it. So do you mind talking me through that?
It's definitely really a bigger and more important part of the modern game in terms of what our modern day footballers have to deal with. And I think it connects to some of the things that we've already spoken about, that performance is deeply personal.
Yes.
So when there is feedback, in terms of social media, it's hard for the players not to take it personally, because their performance is so deeply personal. I think we don't have a great internal measuring stick, so we often look to the external world to measure ourselves, to validate us, and so it is really tricky when players, when people they go to social media and sort of the external world to measure themselves, and if it's negative, it can really erode that self-confidence and self-belief. And I guess for me, in terms of my role, it's really about working with players in terms of developing their own internal measuring stick. Is how do they want to measure themselves, and that's where values become really important, in terms of, because performance changes from week to week. So if we're going to measure ourselves on performance, that's going to be pretty shaky, because performance with footballers, it changes from week to week, and so their self-esteem and how they measure themselves, how they see themselves, is going to change from week to week. Whereas values don't change, from week to week. That's a really solid foundation to have. And so, really encouraging our players to have values, to be committed to their values, to measure themselves according to values, and also, I guess, to have a really small circle. Brene Brown sort of talks about a board of advisors, and so to make sure that players have got their own board of advisors, the people that they trust and that they go to, and we really focus on eyes in, really making sure that the feedback comes from within the four walls, more from a confidence and a belief point of view. I think the other thing that's really important is where confidence comes from is doing the work. And so making sure that our players focus on doing the work, building their skills, building their competency, so that the belief and trust is there, that they are good enough. And then an understanding that in terms of social media, the external world, they've also got a job to do, and understanding that there's a place for that. And so we need to acknowledge that it's there, but they don't need to let it into their internal world. It's not a reflection of them personally, it's a reflection of performance. Performance is something that we do, it's not who we are.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
To me, that's a little bit wishy-washy, but I'm maybe showing my age. I understand, having young kids, I understand how the impacts of randoms seem to be a bit greater than it is my generation, where I'm still, I'm showing my age. I'm 40 years old. A random person saying I'm a twat doesn't pay my wage. It's not my wife. It's not my kids. They're irrelevant to me. So my methodology from what she said there is I would be teaching the players, you know what you are, you know who you are.
Yeah.
And that would then play into a second part of what she said about your values. If you have great values, no one can pull you away from that. If you have values that you stand by, it doesn't matter what anyone says, as long as you abide by your own personal mantra, you are fine. You are fine, and you are ploughing on into the next generation. You know what? It actually made me think of something though. Zoe sent me something the other day, and this is a great little game to play. And it was like a men's questionnaire of how men think. And one of the questions was, if you could go back when you were 18, what would you say that would help you when you were 40? And it got me thinking. And you know, when something she said made me think of it, where she said, keep your circle small. And what I would say to my 18-year-old self is about that. When you leave school, you go to university, don't you? And all your schoolmates, you get together, you have that party where you piss off to university. And you all say this, don't you? Oh, I'll tell you what, summer holidays, we'll get some beers and we'll share the memories and the stories. And then people get less and less, don't they? As time goes on, 30 people turn up to the first one. Then you get busy and 15 turn up. If I had my time again, I would have said to Little Pom, you know, only 4 of these people you genuinely like. They're your people. Do everything you can to keep in touch with these people. Make sure you show them that you love them, because the others are waste of space. They're just going to be there because they drink beer. I think that's really important. If you've got good people around you and you've got good values, and then people hold you to your values, the sky is the limit. But it does worry me when I hear full-grown adults tell me about social media. I know it's tough, but you should be okay.
I think it's easier said than done. Yes, of course, don't read. Yes, of course, swipe out. Of course. But I think the challenge in this conversation is that you have a lot of people, even watching right now, who were not 12 years old with social media, and who were not like, it was still in the time of call your mates on your house phone, meet you at the park at 4 p.m. There's no text message. Oh, log on to Messenger. Oh, I'm running 10 minutes. Like, there's none of that. It's a different reality. There wasn't a everyone's got their location turned on Snapchat, and I can see that 4 of my group of 5 are at one of my friend's house and I wasn't invited. It's a different reality, and it's hard to understand if you haven't lived it. Which I don't even know if I want to go down this path of conversation, but the fact that they're trying to make, the fact that there is a change in the law made by people who did not grow up with social media for kids having social media, maybe for another day I'll get into that. But you do have to pay it some sort of respect, in the sense of it is a learned skill. You and I struggled with negative comments 5 years ago more than what we do now. Like, now it's like I have total confidence in what's been built. I remember at the start, you know, you get hate online. That's fine. Like, I've grown up in troll culture. Like, sometimes you play like Call of Duty, you're on the headset, like you're trying to say as nasty a thing as you can to get under the skin of someone online. And the internet came, and then this anonymity came, and you could say what you wanted with no repercussions. And we're slowly moving away from that. But I kind of grew up in that, so I can kind of take it. But I've now learned, similar to what she said there, I mean, what I value within myself is above anything that anyone online could ever really say to me. Like, no one online has said something to me as bad as what I've said about myself. But that's a learned skill. That's not something I just had from the start, you know? And when you've got these 18-year-olds coming in, and then you've got 100,000 members, hundreds of thousands of fans, you're an 18-year-old kid. You don't even know who you are. Your sense of self, your sense of confidence, and you're looking out on the internet because you're still curious about what the world is. You can't shelter them for the internet because,
no,
and you know,
spot on. But you can also, like, this is a great conversation, because I don't think society has changed as much as people allow you to believe. So me and David had this great conversation over tea where I was telling him about my childhood, and then we got my father-in-law in, and obviously there's 2 generations. And like I was saying, you think mine's archaic? Listen to him. So there was still bullying. I'm 40 years old, Terry. There were still horrible kids at school. There was horrible rumours. Do you know what I mean? There was horrible accusations. And yes, it was limited to the playground. It didn't come home with you. Like, you had that
the
wonderful
volume
moment.
is just turned up on it now. So what was in the playground is in the playground, and when you get home and you log on.
And you know what I think's changed? I think when I was a kid, I was taught confidence in myself through the words of, you know that's not true. Your friends know that's not true. Fuck them. right? But it gets it. I feel like we've taken that away. So I think you nailed it there. When you're 18 years old, I've got a young 10-year-old boy, and he's going through the social media thing. And something that I teach him is the same things, but used on social media. Like the same principles apply. You know what you are. Be who you are. If you're going to be criticized, the most beautiful thing in the world is to be criticized for who you are. So when I get fat, pommy, C-U-N-T, well, I am fat, I am pommy, and I am a C-U-N-T. It's okay. I know that. So it can't hurt me if I can tolerate that. So it worries me when I think she's just worded that for the interview. I am sure she's not in there doing an agony aunt session for social media. Like, I hope she's putting the building blocks in place, because my question back to her would be this. I go through Carlton posts, and trust me, I read some of the comments from fans and I want to shoot myself in the brain. Do you know what I mean? I read them and I'm like, fucking, I'd punch the crap out of this person. But, right, there's also beautiful comments, right? So, like, if you go through the Alex Chincotta one, there's a plethora of people saying, not best 22 anyway, hack, list clogger. If he goes on that post and he's looking for a negative outcome, he will get it.
Yep.
Better way to switch his mindset. And you taught me this, Terry, with my negative comments. And I deal with negative comments, I think, pretty well. I either give you it back or I have a laugh about it. But if you look for the beauty in them comments, Alex will see that young girl who said, "You're my best player, Alex. I really hope you're at open training when you're there. Hope you have a great Christmas. I love Chincotta. Go Chincotta." There is good positive comments. And in every post, if they're looking for the negativity, they will find it. But I think that's life, Terry. You know, like as an old man now, without getting sidetracked, if I'm looking for someone to call me a prick, I can find them. Right? The difference between someone telling me I'm a legend, it's probably easy for someone to call me a twat than it is to say I love what you do. That's the secret. That's life, Terry. That's not social media. That has been how life has existed since day one. People are more willing to drag you down than they are raise you up. It's what you go looking for, Terry. Do you know what I mean? It's what you go looking for in life.
I think it's just the amplification of what was already there. It's not that it's never been this way. It's just, it's so much more accessible to your mind, and learning to have the discipline of, I mean, at the end of the day, the only negative comment or the only comment that can really affect you from someone is from a comment or from a person whose opinion you value. Ultimately, if you value that person's opinion more, like enough to react to it, that's a whole different conversation. So a great conversation nonetheless. I think Jack Silvani said it best on the Dylan Friends interview he did about Carlton supporters, where he said he knows the place it's coming from. All we want is for them to succeed so we can feel a part of it. That's all we want.
Yeah, and ultimately, and any parent in chat will totally agree with me, we want to avoid society being what it can never be. And as a dad, I would love it if I could wave my magic wand and my sons never experience hardship, never experience pain, suffering, never cry, never feel any sadness. But then there's a big part of me that wouldn't want that world, because then they'll never know if they'll never experience love if they don't understand heartbreak. They'll never understand joy if they don't experience sadness. How can you do that? So you can't protect people. The best way you can do is prepare people. Prepare
them.
people, right? And unfortunately, when you decided to enter that draft in 2024, you signed up to an internet world where Dave from the Dog and Duck, who hasn't walked more than a kilometre, can tell you that you're fucking lazy as a professional sportsman. That's the world you've signed up to. But if social media stops you reaching your highs, as horrible as it sounds, and I say this to my kids, that's a you problem of how you react to it. Because dickheads have existed since day one. But heroes don't react to dickheads.
That's true. That's true.